Hi there, movie lovers. If My Love Will Make You Disappear has been on your mind, you've come to the right place. Released on March 26, 2025, this film is packed with surprises, and today, we're going to break it all down for you. If you're excited to explore more, be sure to like this video. It's a small click that means the world to us. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our deep dives into your favorite movies. Let's get started. On the 26th of March, 2025, the Philippine cinematic world buzzed with anticipation as My Love Will Make You Disappear premiered in theaters across the country, marking the arrival of a captivating and fresh romantic comedy. The movie, directed by Vidanes, struck a rare and exquisite balance between charm, humor, and emotional depth, delivering a story that promised to tug at the heartstrings of every viewer. With Chiu and Paulo Avelino headlining the film, their undeniable chemistry sparkled from the very first frame, drawing viewers in with a compelling story that both challenged and celebrated the unpredictability of love. From the very first moments of My Love Will Make You Disappear, it becomes clear that this film is not just another run-of-the-mill romance. It's an experience, one that is equal parts funny, endearing, and deeply moving. The premise itself is irresistible, and its uniqueness quickly establishes it as a must-watch. At its core, it is a story about Sari, a young woman who, for as long as she can remember, has lived under the shadow of a strange and troubling curse. A curse that makes every man she falls in love with mysteriously vanish from her life without warning, as if they've disappeared into thin air. As a result, she's become something of a hopeless romantic, yet skeptical and fearful of love itself. Sari is not just afraid of getting hurt, she's terrified that her very affection will cause someone else's disappearance, and that makes her push people away, especially men. In a world where love is often seen as an uncontrollable force that sweeps us away, My Love Will Make You Disappear offers a unique twist. It takes a familiar trope of magical realism and turns it into a narrative about overcoming emotional barriers. What starts as a light-hearted, almost whimsical idea, a woman whose love causes her partners to vanish, soon deepens into a poignant exploration of fear, self-worth, and the consequences of opening one's heart. The film weaves a story of strange coincidences and unexplained phenomena that will keep viewers hooked. Sari, though wary of falling in love, finds herself drawn to Jolo, played by Paulo Avelino, a brooding and mysterious man who is dealing with his own struggles. Jolo, a man with his own emotional baggage and failures, initially seems like an unlikely match for Sari, yet the pair are drawn together by a shared vulnerability. Jolo, with his complex past and uncertainty about his future, offers Sari something she's never had, a chance to love without the expectation of being abandoned. But what happens when the weight of her fear becomes too much to bear? Will Sari allow herself to be loved, or will her fears ultimately destroy what might have been the greatest love of her life? The movie's central premise alone promises a unique cinematic journey, but it's the standout moments and unexpected twists that elevate it from simply a quirky romantic comedy to something more profound and unforgettable. From the delicate build-up of Sari's complicated feelings to the stirring, heart-wrenching scenes where she contemplates whether she can risk falling for Jolo, My Love Will Make You Disappear delves into the intricacies of the human heart in a way that feels both personal and universal. As the film progresses, there's a palpable sense of tension, not just in the plot, but in the characters' emotional journeys as they try to navigate the delicate balance between love and loss. Every twist in the story feels earned and inevitable, making the moments of surprise all the more impactful. Just when it seems like everything is on track, the movie throws in twists that make you question everything you thought you knew about the characters and their fates. Is Sari truly cursed? Or is the real curse her inability to trust love? And just when the tension seems like it's about to break, the film takes a sharp turn, offering viewers a poignant reminder that life is full of surprises, some painful, some healing, but all necessary for growth. In addition to its gripping plot, the film's cinematography deserves a special mention. The shots are lush and evocative, beautifully capturing the emotional weight of each scene, whether it's the small moments of intimate connection between Sari and Jolo or the larger, more dramatic sequences that speak to the complexity of love and relationships. Each frame feels carefully crafted, contributing to the overall mood of the film and drawing you deeper into the world it creates. The supporting characters, though not as central to the story, add significant depth to the narrative, each one representing a different facet of love, loss, or hope. Whether it's Sari's quirky best friend who encourages her to embrace her feelings, or Jolo's friends who push him to move forward despite his past, each character feels real and essential. They highlight how love, in all its forms, can change the course of a person's life. These interactions are sometimes humorous, sometimes heartbreaking, but they always serve to deepen the emotional resonance of the story. However, it's not just the narrative that makes My Love Will Make You Disappear a film to remember. It's the heart and soul of the characters that carry the film, particularly Sari and Jolo. Chiu brings a depth to her portrayal of Sari that goes beyond the surface-level fears and uncertainties of her character. She portrays Sari's vulnerability with such authenticity that it's impossible not to root for her, even as she makes mistakes and struggles with her own insecurities. Paulo Avelino, too, gives a performance full of nuance and complexity. His portrayal of Jolo feels grounded and real, even when the supernatural elements of the story start to take over. Together, the two actors create a chemistry that's palpable, making every scene between them feel raw and emotionally charged. What truly sets My Love Will Make You Disappear apart is how it explores the question of whether love can truly disappear or if it simply transforms in ways we don't always understand. The final act of the movie delivers a thrilling, unforgettable moment that will have viewers on the edge of their seats, questioning the very nature of the love story they've been watching. It's a twist that, once revealed, reframes everything you thought you knew about Sari's curse and her relationship with Jolo. The film challenges the very idea of love as something that can vanish, proposing instead that love is not a fleeting force, but a powerful, ever-changing part of the human experience. The film builds to a breathtakingly emotional conclusion, one that will leave audiences reflecting on their own relationships and the risks they've taken in love. It's a finale that resonates long after the credits roll, leaving a lingering sense of both hope and heartache. It's a film that understands the complexities of love, its fears, its pain, its beauty, and presents them in a way that feels both honest and magical. For those who enjoy a movie that surprises them with every twist, challenges their assumptions about love, and leaves them feeling deeply moved, My Love Will Make You Disappear is a must-watch. It's a film that doesn't just entertain. It stays with you, long after the lights come up, making you reflect on the fragility and power of love itself. Whether you're a hopeless romantic or someone who's wary of love, this movie offers something for everyone. It's a cinematic experience you won't want to miss. Sari had always felt like an outsider in her own life, as though she were living a half-existence, haunted by an inexplicable curse that made every connection feel like it might break at any moment. The story began with a shot of her walking down the bustling streets of Manila, the neon lights casting reflections on the wet pavement as rain fell gently around her. Her face, framed by soft, dark hair, was a picture of quiet intensity, her eyes always scanning, always waiting for the next person to slip away. The weight of the curse wasn't just a myth to her, it was a truth she couldn't escape. It had started when she was young. She would later tell anyone who cared to listen. Every time she became attached to someone, every time love found its way into her heart, that person would vanish from her life in ways that defied reason. It wasn't that they left her, it was that they seemed to disappear without a trace, as though they were never really there to begin with. At first, she thought it was just bad luck. But the pattern continued: boyfriends, close friends, even family members. Sari's mother, a woman of gentle wisdom, would often tell her that love was a force that could neither be controlled nor contained, and that her heart would find its way to a love that could endure one day. But Sari, wrapped in a cloak of fear and skepticism, wasn't so sure. The quiet solitude she had learned to embrace over the years was disturbed one evening when she met Jolo. It was a rainy Thursday night, the kind of evening that made Manila feel alive with possibilities, but also with a quiet sorrow that hung in the air. Sari had been on her way home from work, her mind preoccupied with the usual thoughts, whether she was worthy of love, whether the curse would strike again. It was in that reflective state that she crossed paths with Jolo, standing under the awning of a small, dimly lit cafe. She had noticed him before, at the edge of the neighborhood, the stoic man who always seemed to be watching life unfold rather than participating in it. At first glance, Jolo didn't seem like anyone special. His clothes were simple, worn from years of quiet living, and his face was unremarkable at first, save for the quiet sadness that seemed to radiate from him. He wasn't the type of man who smiled easily, but there was something in the way he held himself, something in the way he seemed to bear the weight of his own unresolved struggles, that drew Sari in, even if she didn't fully understand why. They exchanged a brief, almost awkward greeting. Jolo was familiar with Sari from his time in the neighborhood, but she didn't know much about him beyond the fact that he was a man who carried a quiet aura of mystery around him. It wasn't long before they began to run into each other more often. Small talk became easy, conversations that started with simple questions about the weather, the city, work, soon blossomed into longer exchanges. He had an intensity about him that made her feel strangely seen, as though he could read the parts of her that she kept hidden from the world. And perhaps, on some level, that's why she felt drawn to him. But that connection, like all others, was built on shaky ground. Sari knew that eventually, Jolo too would disappear. It was just a matter of time. Love, for her, was always a countdown to inevitable loss. And yet, there was something about him that made her hesitate, that made her want to believe, even just for a moment, that maybe this time would be different. Their first real moment of closeness came during an unexpected conversation one evening, when the two of them were forced to take shelter from a sudden downpour in the small cafe. The world outside was a blur of wet streets and flashing car lights, but inside, the cafe was warm, with the rich scent of coffee hanging in the air. They sat at a small corner table, surrounded by the hum of quiet conversation and the soft tapping of keyboards. Jolo, who had been quiet for most of their interactions, opened up about his own life in a way that caught Sari off guard. He spoke of a failed relationship, of dreams that had slipped through his fingers, and of a family that no longer seemed to understand him. He had the weight of the world on his shoulders, but it wasn't just the burden of his past that seemed to affect him. It was the sense that he was stuck, unable to move forward, trapped in a life that didn't feel like his own. Sari listened, a part of her understanding his pain, even though her own wounds were different. They were both in search of something they couldn't define, something that felt just out of reach. In those quiet moments, something shifted. The chemistry between them, once faint and uncertain, began to bloom. But with every passing day, Sari felt the same gnawing fear that always accompanied her encounters with love. The voice in her head that told her that soon, he would be gone, like all the others. The doubt crept in, weaving through her thoughts like a thread that couldn't be untangled. She wanted to believe in what she was feeling, but the curse was always there, hovering, waiting. Jolo, on the other hand, was unaware of the deeper fears that haunted Sari. He sensed something was different about her, something he couldn't quite place, but he didn't question it. He found himself opening up to her more and more, drawn to her vulnerability and her quiet strength. He had always been wary of love. After all, his own experience with it had been marred by failure. But with Sari, there was something gentle, something unspoken, that made him believe in the possibility of starting over. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, the sky a painting of deep oranges and purples, Sari felt a pang of fear deep in her chest. She had grown too close, too comfortable. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. And that was exactly the moment when the curse felt the strongest. She could feel the weight of it on her shoulders, a pressure that seemed to build with every laugh they shared, with every moment of connection that passed between them. How could she allow herself to believe that this time would be different when she knew what was coming? As they shared stories of their pasts, Sari told Jolo a small piece of her own history, how she had learned to build walls around her heart, how she had convinced herself that love wasn't worth the pain of losing it. Jolo, in turn, shared a story of a childhood friend who had mysteriously disappeared, leaving him with questions that never had answers. He had never been able to explain it, and neither had anyone else. The two of them, in that quiet, reflective moment, began to see the threads that connected their lives in ways they hadn't expected. It wasn't long after that evening that things began to shift. Small, subtle things started to happen, things that made Sari's pulse quicken and her heart race with anxiety. There were moments when she'd see Jolo standing on the street corner, his face tight with the same unspoken worry she felt inside. There were moments when the air between them grew thick, charged with unspoken fears and doubts. And as their connection deepened, so too did the tension. Sari felt the pull of something deeper, something she couldn't ignore. She could feel the presence of the curse more than ever before, an invisible force that threatened to tear them apart before they ever truly had a chance to begin. But despite the fear, despite the overwhelming sense of inevitability, she found herself falling for him. There was no escaping it. Jolo, with all his flaws, with all his ghosts, had become something she didn't know how to walk away from. And yet, the more she cared for him, the more she realized that the more she loved, the closer she came to losing him. It was a cruel twist of fate that hung in the air, and Sari could feel it closing in on her, just as the first signs of true love began to bloom. What would happen when the curse finally struck? Would she lose him like all the others? Or could she finally, for once in her life, break free from the chains of her fear and trust in the love they had? Only time would tell. The days leading up to what would come to be known as the turning point in their relationship were a haze of uncertainty for Sari. It was a soft, suffocating kind of dread that enveloped her, the kind that gnawed at her from within, wrapping its fingers around her chest and squeezing. As much as she had tried to push the thoughts away, the knowledge of what was inevitably coming seemed to settle in her bones. She had spent her entire life expecting the worst, bracing for the moment when her heart would be shattered once again by a love that couldn't last. Yet, with Jolo, things felt different, didn't they? It wasn't just the way he looked at her with that warmth she had never known. It wasn't just the way they could sit in comfortable silence for hours, as if time itself would stop for them. It was the feeling, the raw, unmistakable sense that maybe, just maybe, this time was going to be different. But Sari was no fool. She had learned to protect herself from the most painful of truths. Love was fleeting, love was fragile, and the moment you truly open yourself up to it was the moment it would slip through your fingers. Jolo, for his part, had no idea of the weight that sat so heavily on Sari's heart. He sensed her hesitation, the way she sometimes pulled back when they grew too close, but he chalked it up to the natural apprehension that came with falling for someone. He had been hurt before, after all. He had made the same mistake of thinking love could last forever, only to have it fall apart in front of him. But there was something about Sari that made him believe in love again. She was everything he never thought he could find, someone who was tender yet strong, someone who understood the pain of loss but refused to let it completely define her. With her, he didn't feel the need to hide his scars, and for the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of something real. And so, they continued. Slowly, tenderly, the days bled into one another, and the quiet moments piled up. But with every touch, every lingering glance, the tension in Sari's chest tightened, her fears pushing her to the edge. One evening, just as the sky outside turned from a soft lavender to deep, velvety black, Sari found herself at a crossroads. They had been sitting on the rooftop of the building where she lived, watching the city lights stretch out before them like a never-ending sea of possibilities. The cool night air kissed her skin, and for a brief moment, she forgot about the burden she had carried for so long. "I don't know if I can do this, Jolo," she whispered, her voice soft and shaky. "I don't know if I can love you." Jolo's expression faltered, the weight of her words sinking into him like a stone. He looked at her for a long moment, his brow furrowed, his thoughts lost in the complexity of her statement. "Sari," he began, his voice low but steady. "What do you mean? We're already here. I thought we were building something together." Sari could barely look at him as she spoke, the words tumbling out in a rush. "It's not that I don't want to be with you. It's that I don't know if I can handle losing you, because I know that's what will happen. It always happens." Jolo's heart clenched as he processed her words. He hadn't known the depth of her fears, hadn't understood the invisible chains that bound her heart. She looked so fragile in that moment, her eyes filled with unshed tears. It hurt him to see her like this, to know that the very thing they were trying to build was being threatened by something he couldn't see, something he couldn't control. "I won't leave you," he said, his voice firm, but his eyes soft with sincerity. "You don't have to be afraid of that." But Sari shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "It's not that simple. You don't understand. I've been running from this, from the truth, from the curse, my whole life. And every time I love someone, they disappear. And I don't want to lose you, Jolo. I don't think I can survive it." The words hung between them, heavy and aching, but Jolo didn't understand. How could he? How could anyone truly grasp the weight of a curse that had no explanation, no logic, no reason? It was in that moment of raw, vulnerable truth that the first hint of something unexplainable began to stir. Sari had expected a flash of panic, a moment of inevitable heartbreak, but instead, something strange happened. The world around them seemed to still, just for an instant. The air grew colder, and the sound of distant city life seemed to fade away, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Jolo, unaware of the strange energy surrounding them, reached out to her, his hand brushing against her cheek. "Sari, I want you to trust me," he said softly, the sincerity in his eyes touching something deep within her. "Trust that I won't leave you, not unless you tell me to." And for the first time, Sari felt a flicker of something she hadn't known in years. Hope. But just as quickly as it came, the feeling vanished, and reality returned with a jolt. They were interrupted by a phone call, Sari's phone, vibrating with an urgency that made her stomach twist. She glanced at the screen, her breath catching in her throat. It was from her mother. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling as she answered. Her mother's voice was strained, and the words that followed only deepened the weight in Sari's chest. "Sari, I need you to come home. There's something's happened." Sari's heart raced, a sense of dread flooding her system. She turned to Jolo, who was already standing, concern etched across his face. Without a word, she grabbed her things and rushed out the door, Jolo right behind her, his presence a steadying force in the chaos of her mind. When they arrived at her mother's house, the air was thick with tension. Her mother met them at the door, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Sari, you need to understand something," her mother said quietly, almost as if afraid to speak the truth. "There's a reason you've always felt different. A reason why you've always been so afraid of love. The curse. It's not just a coincidence. It's real. And it's been passed down through our family for generations." Sari felt a cold chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" she whispered, the words barely making it past her lips. Her mother took a deep breath before speaking again. "The curse was never just about love. It's about the price of loving deeply. When you open your heart too fully, when you give yourself completely, the cost is always the same. The person you love disappears. And it's not a question of fate, Sari. It's a question of whether or not you're willing to accept that, to let go, to move forward without fear." Sari's mind reeled as the truth sank in. The curse wasn't some supernatural force. It wasn't a magical punishment for something she had done. It was a choice, her choice. A choice she had never truly understood until now. As she stood there, Jolo by her side, everything she had feared and longed for collided. The curse, the love she felt, the uncertainty of the future, it was all coming together in a way she could no longer deny. In that moment, Sari understood that it wasn't just about breaking free from the curse. It was about breaking free from her own fears, from the belief that love could only bring loss. She had to decide whether she could truly love without the chains of her past holding her back. And as she turned to Jolo, his eyes full of concern and love, she knew the answer. The resolution came not in some grand gesture or dramatic twist, but in the quiet act of choosing to let go of fear. Choosing to embrace the love they had, without knowing what the future held. And in that simple, yet profound choice, everything fell into place. The curse wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The beginning of a new chapter, one where love could truly bloom without the shadow of loss looming over it. Sari didn't need to fear love anymore. Because for the first time, she understood that love wasn't about possession, it was about freedom. And in that freedom, everything was possible. Sari's world had always been quiet, overshadowed by the invisible threads of a curse she could never fully understand, but one she had learned to live with. She had crafted a life around the silence that surrounded her, choosing to stay at arm's length from anything or anyone that might crack open her defenses. Her personality, shaped by years of emotional withdrawal, was a study in contradictions. On the surface, she was calm, composed, and observant, often quiet in her interactions, not because she lacked the desire to connect, but because she was afraid of the inevitable cost of those connections. The fear of losing someone before she even had the chance to truly love them had rendered her into a quiet observer of life, more comfortable on the periphery than at its center. Her motivations were rooted in a desperate need for self-preservation. She had spent years telling herself that love was a fleeting, destructive force, something that would inevitably unravel the fragile threads of happiness she managed to weave. Every glance, every smile, every touch, all carried with them the weight of her haunting experiences. And so, in her quiet isolation, Sari had perfected the art of detachment, keeping others at arm's length to avoid the heartbreak that seemed inevitable. But there was always something bubbling beneath the surface, a deep yearning for connection, for intimacy. It was just buried so far beneath layers of fear that even she wasn't sure if she could ever let it out. Sari's growth throughout the story was marked by the delicate stripping away of those layers. It wasn't an easy process. It wasn't like a light bulb moment where everything suddenly made sense. Instead, her transformation came in fragments, moments of vulnerability that led to breakthroughs she hadn't expected. It was in the small moments with Jolo, those unspoken exchanges that seemed to fill the cracks in her heart. She didn't just grow by learning to trust Jolo, but in learning to trust herself, to allow herself the possibility of love, despite the fear that clung to her like a shadow. Jolo, in many ways, was the catalyst for her growth. He was an enigma to her at first, a man with a quiet intensity and a rugged vulnerability that pulled at something deep inside her. Unlike anyone she had encountered before, Jolo didn't carry the usual baggage of past relationships or the guardedness that most people wore like armor. His character was shaped by a series of disappointments that had left him cautious but not closed off. He had his own emotional scars, but they didn't turn him bitter or hardened. Instead, he was open, sometimes too open, willing to give parts of himself without hesitation, and therein lay the power of his character. Jolo's openness created a contrast to Sari's guardedness, like two polar opposites who were inexplicably drawn to one another. But more than that, Jolo was a man who believed in second chances, in the possibility of redemption and new beginnings, even when the odds seemed stacked against him. As the story unfolded, Jolo's growth mirrored Sari's in a sense, though not in the same way. His journey was less about learning to let go of fear and more about learning how to navigate the delicate space between connection and self-preservation. He didn't have the same fears Sari did, but he had learned to guard his heart after his own series of emotional blows. However, unlike Sari, Jolo didn't let his past define his future. He approached his relationship with her with a sense of optimism that wasn't blind or naive, but rooted in a belief that love, if nurtured, could heal even the deepest wounds. His motivations were tied to this belief. His desire to prove that love wasn't just a fleeting moment of happiness, but something that could withstand the storms of life. It was in his quiet insistence that love didn't have to end in loss that Sari found herself questioning the very foundation of her beliefs. But what truly made Jolo a dynamic character was the way his presence affected Sari. He was the spark that ignited her transformation. He didn't push her into change, but rather, he met her where she was, offering her a safe space to be herself. In that sense, his growth wasn't necessarily about changing who he was, but about realizing that the kind of love he wanted, authentic, unconditional, required not only opening his heart to Sari but also to himself. He had spent so long holding on to his own baggage, never truly confronting the pain of his past, and it was through Sari that he was able to release some of that weight. His journey was about reconciling his hopes with his fears, about finding a way to trust in love again, even when everything inside him screamed to protect himself. The supporting characters, though more peripheral to the plot, played crucial roles in reinforcing the emotional and thematic aspects of the story. Sari's mother was a key figure in this, both as a source of comfort and as the catalyst for Sari's ultimate understanding of the curse that had bound her. She represented the past, the weight of familial history and the cycles that Sari had unknowingly inherited. Her quiet wisdom, born of her own experiences, was the thread that tied Sari's journey back to something deeper. She wasn't just a mother figure offering advice. She was a woman who had lived through her own losses, her own heartbreaks, and who understood that love could be both a blessing and a curse. Her presence in Sari's life, while often understated, was a grounding force, a reminder that no matter how isolated Sari felt, she wasn't alone in her struggles. Then there was Tasha, Sari's best friend, whose presence provided both comic relief and emotional depth. Tasha was the kind of person who could lighten the darkest moments with a laugh or a well-timed joke, but there was more to her than just her bubbly exterior. She was fiercely loyal to Sari, and though she didn't fully understand the weight of Sari's curse, she stood by her through every twist and turn of the emotional journey. Tasha's contribution to the narrative was less about moving the plot forward and more about providing Sari with a mirror through which she could examine her own choices. Tasha didn't shy away from calling Sari out when she needed to face the truth about her fears. In many ways, Tasha represented the external voice of reason, reminding Sari of what she was capable of if she stopped letting fear dictate her decisions. One of the more subtle but significant characters was Lisa, Jolo's older sister. Lisa was pragmatic, sharp, and skeptical, and though she loved her brother deeply, she had seen the damage love could cause. Her interactions with Jolo were often laden with tension, the unsaid words between them speaking volumes. She acted as a counterbalance to the optimism that Jolo carried with him, the voice of caution that constantly reminded him of the fragility of love. In a way, Lisa was the character who represented the practical side of love, its risks, its costs, and its capacity to hurt. Through her, the audience was able to see the other side of the coin, the consequences of loving deeply without the safety net of emotional caution. These supporting characters, while not always the focal point, were integral in fleshing out the story's themes and providing a richer understanding of the main characters. They helped to illuminate different facets of Sari and Jolo's personalities and growth, allowing the narrative to feel more dynamic and grounded in a wider emotional landscape. When it came to performances, the actors brought these characters to life in ways that made them feel incredibly real. The chemistry between Sari and Jolo was palpable, their subtle exchanges laden with unspoken emotions, creating a tension that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. The performances of the supporting cast were equally compelling, with each actor bringing a unique energy that complemented the emotional arc of the story. It was in the quiet moments, the pauses between words, that the true depth of these characters was revealed. The performances weren't just about delivering lines, they were about expressing the emotions that lay beneath the surface, the fears, the hopes, the uncertainties. Each character felt fully realized, their motivations clear and their journeys both personal and universal. Sari's journey from emotional isolation to the acceptance of love was both compelling and heartbreaking, and it was through her interactions with Jolo, Tasha, and the others that her transformation came to life. It wasn't just a story about a woman overcoming fear. It was about learning that love, in all its messy, unpredictable beauty, was worth the risk. The supporting characters, though less central, were crucial to this development, providing the context and support that allowed Sari and Jolo to evolve. Each one brought something unique to the table, whether it was Tasha's unwavering friendship or Lisa's cautious pragmatism, all contributing to the emotional tapestry that made the film feel as rich and layered as it did. Ultimately, it was the way these characters interacted, how they challenged each other, loved each other, and, at times, hurt each other, that gave the story its emotional weight. Through them, the audience could see the complexities of love, the vulnerability it demands, and the growth it fosters. As the cameras rolled and the lights dimmed, the production of My Love Will Make You Disappear seemed, from the outside, like a seamless endeavor, a well-oiled machine moving toward its final goal of cinematic perfection. However, behind the polished surface lay a host of fascinating details, untold stories, and challenges that nearly derailed the project at several key moments. What appeared on screen as the effortless chemistry between the leads and the breathtaking visuals was, in fact, the product of many sleepless nights, countless rewrites, and a dedicated team working tirelessly to bring the director's vision to life. One of the first hurdles the production team faced was the film's unique approach to the curse that lay at the heart of the plot. The idea of an inherited curse, one that not only affected the characters emotionally but also had physical consequences, required a careful balancing act between fantasy and reality. The filmmakers struggled in the early stages with how to represent the curse on screen without it feeling too supernatural or overly theatrical. At first, there were discussions about using special effects, perhaps creating a visual manifestation of the curse that would haunt the characters as they experienced the repercussions of their love. But after multiple tests and brainstorming sessions, they realized that the true power of the curse lay not in how it looked but in the weight it placed on the characters' hearts and minds. As a result, the decision was made to keep the curse largely unseen, allowing the actors to convey the emotional toll through their performances instead of relying on visual gimmicks. This was a bold move, one that pushed the actors to dig deep into their characters' psyches and gave the audience a chance to experience the curse's impact on a more intimate level. The emotional depth required for this approach brought with it its own set of challenges. The chemistry between the two lead actors, Sari and Jolo, was central to the film's success, but it didn't come easily. Initially, the two actors struggled to connect in a way that felt authentic. Both were seasoned professionals, but the raw emotion required for their scenes wasn't something that could be achieved with mere technical skill. The director recognized this and insisted on extended rehearsals, sometimes without the presence of cameras, to allow the two actors to explore their characters' backstories and motivations in depth. During one particularly intense rehearsal, the director asked the actors to improvise a scene where Sari and Jolo were forced to confront their darkest fears about love. It was here that something clicked. After hours of emotionally charged exploration, the actors finally began to find the subtle rhythm that would drive their on-screen relationship. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in the production, allowing the cast to break through the emotional barriers that had been hindering their performances. The rest of the shoot would feel like a natural extension of that moment, as both actors drew upon their own vulnerabilities to bring the complex layers of their characters to life. In addition to the emotional challenges, the production was also marked by technical feats that pushed the boundaries of what had been done before. One of the film's signature elements was its stunning cinematography, particularly in the scenes that depicted the emotional and physical toll of the curse. The decision to shoot many of these sequences in long, uninterrupted takes was a deliberate one, intended to capture the characters' internal struggles in a way that felt both immediate and immersive. The camera often lingered on Sari and Jolo, allowing the audience to witness the subtle shifts in their expressions as they dealt with their emotions. It was a risky choice, as it required the actors to maintain a high level of intensity and focus for long periods, but the results were worth it. One particularly unforgettable scene, in which Sari confronts the haunting truth about her curse, was shot in a single take that lasts nearly 10 minutes. This long, unbroken sequence not only showcased the actors' skill but also served to heighten the sense of tension, as the audience felt as though they were living through the moment with the characters. The filmmakers achieved this effect by carefully planning the lighting, blocking, and camera movement, ensuring that each element worked together to create a seamless, emotionally charged experience. Despite the meticulous planning and the talent on display, the production was not without its share of difficulties. The weather, particularly during the film's outdoor scenes, was a constant source of stress. In one instance, a critical scene set during a storm was scheduled to take place on a beach at dawn, but when the crew arrived on location, they were met with a sudden downpour. The storm didn't let up, and filming was pushed back by several hours. In a rare moment of serendipity, the storm cleared just in time for the crew to shoot the scene as originally planned. The result was a breathtaking sequence, where the rain seemed to heighten the intensity of the characters' emotions, perfectly complementing the narrative's themes of love and loss. However, the delay had caused considerable tension behind the scenes, as the filmmakers were running behind schedule and faced the pressure of making up for lost time. The film's editor, working with the director, had to devise clever ways of stitching the various takes together without losing the emotional momentum of the scene. It was moments like this that tested the resilience of the team, forcing them to adapt to unexpected challenges and find creative solutions on the fly. As the production neared its conclusion, the filmmakers began to shift their focus to the post-production process, where a different kind of challenge awaited. One of the most significant hurdles during editing was the film's pacing. The director had crafted a story that moved between moments of tension and quiet reflection, but the balance between these two tones was delicate. At times, the film threatened to drag during its quieter moments, as the audience's attention could easily wander from the plot's emotional depth. The solution was found in a series of tightly woven musical cues, composed specifically for the film's score. The composer, who had been working closely with the director from the outset, understood the importance of music in amplifying the emotional undercurrents of the story. The haunting, minimalist score was carefully layered to build suspense and intimacy, serving as an invisible thread that connected the film's disparate moments. One particular theme, which became the film's signature motif, was a recurring melody that played during moments of emotional vulnerability. It was subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but as the film progressed, it became more pronounced, mirroring the character's journey toward self-acceptance and love. While the technical challenges were substantial, the filmmakers also incorporated a number of Easter eggs and lesser-known details that would reward the attentive viewer. One of the most talked-about aspects of the film was the use of mirrors. Throughout the movie, mirrors appear in several key scenes, reflecting the inner turmoil of the characters as they wrestle with their feelings of love and fear. These mirrors, though not overtly pointed out in the dialogue, serve as metaphors for the duality of their emotional states. On the one hand, a reflection of their desires and dreams, and on the other, a reminder of the unavoidable cost of loving too deeply. In one memorable scene, Sari's reflection in a mirror is distorted by the ripples of water, symbolizing the emotional fragmentation she feels as the curse slowly unravels her life. These subtle visual cues were a way for the filmmakers to add another layer of meaning to the narrative without explicitly stating it, leaving it up to the audience to decipher. Another Easter egg that gained attention after the film's release was a brief reference to a previous film the director had worked on, a small nod that only die-hard fans would recognize. In a quiet scene set in a cafe, a book is briefly visible in the background. Its title, A Love Like No Other, a clear reference to the director's earlier work. This was a playful touch, a way of acknowledging the director's cinematic journey while also weaving a deeper sense of continuity into the film. Perhaps one of the most fascinating behind-the-scenes details, though, was the influence of the lead actors on the final shape of the characters. The director had always envisioned Sari as a deeply introspective, reserved character, but it was the lead actress's subtle, understated performance that gave the character a new depth. During one of their early discussions about Sari's backstory, the actress suggested that Sari's silence wasn't just a defense mechanism, but a form of self-protection, something rooted in childhood trauma. This idea was later incorporated into the script, subtly shifting the character's arc and providing a clearer emotional through-line for the audience. The actor portraying Jolo also brought his own unique perspective to the role, suggesting that Jolo's past heartbreak was something he carried with him, not as a wound to be hidden but as a part of his identity. This suggestion led to several scenes being reworked to highlight Jolo's vulnerability and emotional complexity, ultimately making the character more relatable and grounded in the narrative's themes of love and healing. In the end, the production of My Love Will Make You Disappear was more than just a series of fortunate decisions and technical feats. It was a collaboration between an extraordinary group of talented individuals who each brought their unique vision and expertise to the table. The challenges they faced were many, but it was through their collective effort that the film was able to transcend its own limitations, creating something that felt both intimately personal and universally resonant. And as the credits rolled, the audience was left not only with a beautiful story but also with a sense of awe at the magic that had been woven behind the scenes. The power of My Love Will Make You Disappear lies not only in its intricate storytelling and stunning visuals, but also in the way it weaves its key moments into an emotional tapestry that resonates with viewers long after the credits roll. Each pivotal scene in the film contributes to a larger narrative about love, fear, and self-acceptance, each moment layered with thematic significance that invites viewers to reflect on their own relationships, vulnerabilities, and the inherent risks of loving deeply. As the film unfolds, Certain moments become more than just plot points. They evolve into emotional anchors that elevate the entire story, leaving lasting impressions on the audience. One of the film's most pivotal moments occurs early on, when Sari, the film's central character, first experiences a glimpse of the curse's power. In an intimate scene between her and Jolo, their quiet connection is disrupted by an unexpected event, a moment of overwhelming emotional tension that physically manifests itself as the curse begins to unravel. The way this scene is framed, both visually and emotionally, emphasizes the invisible weight of the curse that has shaped Sari's life. The viewers are invited not only to witness her inner turmoil but also to feel it. The camera lingers on her face, capturing the subtle tremor of her lip, the way her body stiffens, the sense of being on the precipice of something terrifying. This moment marks the beginning of Sari's emotional journey, setting the tone for everything that follows. It's the moment that forces her to confront the reality of her life. The curse is not just an abstract concept, but something that will affect every decision she makes, every relationship she forms. The emotional gravity of this scene is amplified by the silent connection between Sari and Jolo. What could have been a simple plot device? The emotional gravity of this scene is amplified by the silent connection between Sari and Jolo. What could have been a simple plot device, this curse, is instead given weight through the actors' delicate performances, and their chemistry fills the void left by the curse's non-physical presence. Jolo's willingness to stand by Sari despite the invisible force that seems to push them apart is one of the first indicators that the film will not be about overcoming external obstacles alone, but about the internal battles that love demands. In this way, the film lays the foundation for one of its most central themes, the way love, though a beautiful and powerful force, is often inextricably linked with fear and sacrifice. The curse, in this early moment, becomes less of an obstacle and more of a metaphor for the complicated nature of relationships. It's not just about love being something to fear, it's about how love, when intertwined with history and trauma, can transform into something both empowering and devastating. As the story progresses, another key moment arrives when Sari faces the decision of whether to fully let go of her fear and embrace the love she feels for Jolo. This moment is charged with emotional intensity. For much of the film, Sari has kept herself emotionally distant from those around her, believing that her curse is not only an inherited burden but also a punishment she deserves for loving too deeply. Her hesitance to open herself up to Jolo, to acknowledge the connection they share, is rooted in the belief that love cannot exist without loss. This is a moment of emotional reckoning for Sari. She must decide whether to surrender to the possibility of happiness or to remain locked in a self-imposed cage of emotional isolation. The way this scene unfolds is critical to understanding Sari's emotional arc. It's not just about her verbalizing her fears, but about how she physically holds herself back. Her posture, the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way her hands tremble, it all speaks to the deep-rooted trauma she carries. This is a moment of vulnerability, and the camera, once again, lingers on her face, capturing every flicker of doubt and hesitation. The audience feels this hesitation with her, drawn into the internal struggle that defines her character. And yet, it's also a moment of profound transformation. Her decision to finally take that leap of faith, to embrace love despite the risks, marks a pivotal shift not just in her relationship with Jolo, but in her own self-acceptance. The thematic core of the film becomes clear. Love is not about avoiding pain, but about choosing to be vulnerable, even when the possibility of heartbreak looms large. This scene, in its raw emotionality, captures the essence of what the film is trying to convey about the complexities of human connection. The sequence that follows is one of the film's most unforgettable, as Sari and Jolo, in the face of the curse's intensifying effects, reach a point where they must confront not only their fears but also the truth about their relationship. The escalating tension builds to a climactic moment, where the curse seems to take physical form, threatening to consume them both. What makes this moment so striking is the way it blurs the line between the supernatural and the deeply emotional. The curse is not just an external force, it is the manifestation of their emotional baggage, of their unresolved fears and desires. In this scene, the curse no longer exists as a metaphorical weight, it becomes a tangible thing, a force that threatens to tear them apart. The visual design of the scene, where shadows swirl and distort, and the air itself seems thick with tension, heightens the emotional stakes. The supernatural elements, which have been subtly woven throughout the film, now take center stage, but instead of feeling like a traditional plot device, they feel like an organic extension of the character's journey. This moment serves as a turning point for both Sari and Jolo. It's in this climactic sequence that they must choose whether to fight the curse or to give into it, whether to embrace the love that they have fought so hard to suppress or to allow their fears to dictate their fates. The film's use of the curse here becomes more than just a plot device. It is a narrative vehicle for exploring the way individuals often fight against their deepest desires and emotions out of fear of vulnerability. As Sari and Jolo face the full force of the curse, the emotional weight of the scene is magnified by the question that lingers over everything. Can love survive, or will it disappear into the ether, just as the title suggests? The resolution, when it comes, is both heart-wrenching and cathartic. It's a quiet moment, not of triumph, but of acceptance. The curse, though not fully eradicated, loses its power as Sari and Jolo learn to accept one another, and themselves, fully, flaws and all. This final scene, which takes place in the quiet aftermath of the emotional storm that has just passed, speaks volumes about the film's central message. Love, the film suggests, is not about achieving perfection or escaping pain. It is about embracing the whole, messy, complicated reality of being human. The emotional and thematic undercurrents of the film come together in this moment, as Sari and Jolo realize that they do not need to escape the past or erase the curse to find happiness. They need only to accept that love is not something to be feared but something to be experienced, fully and without reservation. In many ways, the film's impact lies in its ability to explore the emotional complexities of love through the lens of an almost mythological curse. It's a story about the ways in which we build walls around our hearts to protect ourselves from pain, and how those walls can also keep us from the very thing we long for, connection. The key moments, the initial confrontation with the curse, Sari's moment of decision, the climactic face-off with a supernatural force, are all building blocks that support the film's central exploration of emotional vulnerability. But beyond the plot points, what makes these moments so powerful is the way they resonate with viewers on a deeper, more universal level. Everyone, at some point, has been afraid to love, has feared the potential for loss, or has struggled to reconcile the love they want with the love they are willing to give. These are not just character struggles. They are human struggles, and it's this raw, emotional truth that connects the audience to the film. In the end, My Love Will Make You Disappear stands as a testament to the power of emotional storytelling. It doesn't rely on twists or shocking reveals, but instead builds its impact through the slow, steady unfolding of its characters' emotional arcs. The key moments, whether they are moments of revelation or quiet introspection, are not just plot devices. They are the heartbeats of the film, each one contributing to the larger themes of love, loss, and self-acceptance. The movie's significance lies in its ability to capture the complexities of love without ever simplifying or sugarcoating the experience. It leaves the audience with a lingering sense of introspection, urging them to reflect on their own relationships, their own fears, and, ultimately, their own capacity to love despite the risks. The magic of My Love Will Make You Disappear is as much in its technical execution as it is in its emotional storytelling. While the raw vulnerability of the characters anchors the film, it's the artistry behind the camera, the sound design, and the subtle yet brilliant decisions made by the crew that elevate the story to something truly unforgettable. Filmmaking is often considered a collaborative art, and this project stands as a testament to the seamless integration of technical mastery and creative vision. From the first frame to the last, the movie breathes life through its visual storytelling, subtle sound design, and innovative approaches that push the boundaries of what could be achieved on screen. The cinematography in the film is nothing short of a revelation, capturing the delicate nuances of emotion with every shot. Working under the guidance of an experienced director and a visionary cinematographer, the team knew early on that the visual language of the film had to mirror its emotional depth. Unlike many films that rely heavily on fast-paced editing or dramatic angles, My Love Will Make You Disappear adopts a more contemplative approach. The camera lingers, moving slowly and deliberately, almost as if to give the audience time to absorb the feelings that each character is experiencing. The cinematographer, who had worked on a variety of genres in the past, understood that the key to portraying the intangible nature of the curse was to avoid over-sensationalizing it. Instead of using typical horror-style shots or jarring cuts, the cinematography leaned into subtler cues. The camera often positioned itself in a way that felt intimate, close-ups of the characters' faces, lingering shots of their hands brushing against each other, or wide shots of isolated figures standing alone in empty rooms. This style created a visual intimacy that made the audience feel like they were walking beside the characters, experiencing their emotional journey up close. The decision to use long, uninterrupted takes became one of the signature techniques that defined the film's aesthetic. At first glance, it may seem like a simple choice, but in practice, it presented considerable challenges. The actors had to maintain perfect alignment with the emotional beats of the script while also navigating the physical demands of each scene. One of the most memorable sequences in the film takes place in a dimly lit hallway, where the tension between Sari and Jolo builds slowly. The camera follows them from behind, slowly tracking their movements as they move through the space, their shadows stretching and warping on the walls. This scene took hours to perfect, with the director and cinematographer experimenting with various lighting setups to create the right balance between mystery and intimacy. The decision to shoot it in one continuous take, without cutting away, was both a technical and creative risk. But it paid off. The audience is drawn into the character's world, feeling the weight of every step they take, every word they speak, as though they, too, are navigating the shadows. Equally important to the visual storytelling was the sound design, which played a critical role in amplifying the emotional atmosphere of the film. The sound team worked tirelessly to ensure that every creak of a floorboard, every rustle of fabric, and every distant echo added to the overall tension. Sound, often a subtle yet powerful force in film, was used in My Love Will Make You Disappear to create an atmosphere of unease and intimacy simultaneously. In several scenes, where the characters are alone with their thoughts, the silence between them feels almost suffocating. The absence of sound in these moments forces the audience to focus on the internal, creating a heightened sense of anticipation. But it's not just the silence that adds to the film's atmosphere. It's the sound that exists in those quiet spaces. The faint whisper of wind, the subtle hum of a distant object, the eerie melody of a lone instrument playing somewhere off-screen. These elements work together to underscore the haunting presence of the curse, reminding the viewer that, even when the characters are alone, the tension never truly dissipates. One particular scene demonstrates the marriage of sound and cinematography to stunning effect. As Sari walks through an abandoned house, a place once filled with memories of her past, the sound of her footsteps is amplified, echoing through the empty halls. The creaks of the wooden floorboards, each step punctuated by an almost agonizing slowness, fill the space. At the same time, the camera lingers on her face, capturing her quiet determination to face the truth about her past. The visual of her moving through this ghostly space, paired with the unsettling sound design, turns this seemingly simple moment into one of the most emotionally charged scenes in the film. The audience is pulled into Sari's inner world, her emotional journey reflected not only in the expressions on her face but also in the sounds that surround her. This seamless interplay between visual and auditory elements brought the thematic core of the film, facing one's past and confronting the weight of the curse, into sharp focus. While the visuals and sound were integral to the film's success, one of the more fascinating aspects of the filmmaking process involved the collaboration between the actors and the crew in shaping the performances. Early in the rehearsals, the director encouraged the actors to embrace a method of reactive acting, a technique that focuses on internal emotional shifts rather than overt, externalized expressions. The actors were given the freedom to improvise and explore their characters' motivations without the constraints of a rigid script. This approach allowed the actors to breathe life into the characters in a way that felt organic and real. One of the most powerful moments of the film, the quiet confrontation between Sari and Jolo near the film's midpoint, was shaped through this improvisational process. The scene, which was originally meant to be a straightforward conversation about the curse and its implications, evolved into something far more complex as the actors began to dig deeper into their own emotional landscapes. For the scene, the director kept the camera focused on the two characters, with minimal cuts, as the actors spontaneously explored their characters' fears and desires. What started as a scripted moment about the curse became a raw, emotional exchange about love, loss, and self-doubt. The vulnerability of the actors, amplified by the director's trust in their ability to interpret the material, brought an authenticity to the scene that would have been impossible to achieve with a more traditional approach. Behind the scenes, the crew marveled at how the scene transformed in real time, with the actors' improvisations adding layers of meaning that weren't initially present in the script. It was one of those moments where the creative synergy between the cast and crew produced something beyond anyone's expectations, making it one of the film's most talked-about sequences. In addition to the acting and cinematography, another standout technical achievement was the way the filmmakers handled the visual effects, particularly in relation to the supernatural elements. The curse, though central to the plot, was never depicted as an overt, fantastical force. Rather than relying on heavy CGI or elaborate special effects, the filmmakers took a more minimalist approach. The supernatural occurrences were often implied through subtle visual cues, shadows that seemed to move of their own accord, objects that subtly shifted when no one was looking, or the occasional flicker of distorted light. In one pivotal scene, where the curse first fully reveals itself, the filmmakers used practical effects to create a sense of physical disturbance in the environment. Instead of resorting to green screens or complicated digital effects, the production team employed clever use of practical lighting and in-camera effects, such as mirrors that distorted the reflection of the characters or lenses that warped the surroundings. The use of these practical effects allowed the filmmakers to maintain the film's grounded, intimate feel, even as the supernatural element took center stage. For example, in a climactic sequence in which Sari faces the full wrath of the curse, the filmmakers used a series of mirrors, smoke, and lighting tricks to create an otherworldly atmosphere without ever revealing the true form of the curse. The mirrors, which had appeared throughout the film as a symbol of self-reflection and inner conflict, now took on a more ominous role, distorting the characters' images and reflecting their deepest fears. The effect was achieved not through expensive CGI, but through a combination of smoke machines, carefully placed lighting, and practical mirror effects on set. The simplicity of the approach made the sequence all the more unsettling, as the audience was left to imagine the horror, rather than see it in full. It was an elegant solution that not only served the story's themes but also enhanced the film's sense of realism, creating a hauntingly memorable sequence without relying on gimmicks. The final ingredient in the film's technical success came from the editing room, where the pace of the narrative was carefully crafted to ensure the emotional beats landed with maximum impact. The film's editor worked closely with the director to strike the right balance between tension and release. During scenes of high emotional stakes, the editing slowed down, lingering on key moments to allow the emotions to settle in before moving to the next beat. Conversely, during scenes of suspense or revelation, the editing quickened, almost imperceptibly pushing the viewer forward. The rhythm of the film, dictated in part by the editing, worked in tandem with the cinematography and sound design to ensure that the film's emotional landscape unfolded with a sense of inevitability, drawing the audience deeper into the character's journey. In the end, My Love Will Make You Disappear was a masterclass in the seamless integration of technical craft and emotional storytelling. The behind-the-scenes decisions, from the cinematography to the sound design, from the creative collaboration between the actors to the subtle visual effects, worked in harmony to bring the film's world to life in a way that felt both intimate and grand. Every detail, whether visible or invisible, was carefully constructed to serve the film's central themes of love, fear, and transformation. The technical elements didn't overshadow the story. Rather, they enhanced it, allowing the audience to experience the characters' emotional journeys on a visceral level. It was a film that, from its conception to its final cut, was shaped by the collective effort of a team that understood the power of storytelling through every frame, every sound, and every moment. At its heart, My Love Will Make You Disappear is a tale of duality, of light and shadow, love and fear, presence and absence. The narrative delves deeply into the complexities of the human experience, exploring not just the surface-level dynamics of love and relationships but also the psychological and emotional forces that shape them. This duality is woven into the very fabric of the film, influencing everything from its plot structure to its visual aesthetic. By exploring the interplay of these opposing forces, the film taps into universal themes that speak to the vulnerability inherent in all human connections. One of the most powerful themes at the core of the story is the idea of love as both a force of healing and a potential source of destruction. The curse that haunts Sari, the central character, serves as a metaphor for this duality. Initially, love is presented as something to fear, something that can be as damaging as it is beautiful. The curse, which manifests whenever Sari opens her heart to someone, seems to reinforce the idea that love, in its purest form, carries an unavoidable cost. In this world, vulnerability and love are dangerous. They bring with them the weight of the past, the ghosts of lost relationships, and the risk of further heartbreak. However, as the film progresses, this perception begins to shift. The curse, rather than being an inherent punishment, becomes a means through which Sari must learn to overcome her own fears and grow. It's through confronting the curse, by facing the very thing she's avoided her entire life, that she learns the transformative power of love. This journey underscores a deeply human truth. Love, though terrifying, is what ultimately heals the deepest wounds. In parallel to the central theme of love's dual nature, the film also explores the idea of self-acceptance. Sari's curse is deeply tied to her inability to accept her past and to forgive herself for perceived failures. Her fear of love, of truly opening herself up to another person, is rooted in her own sense of unworthiness. She believes that the curse is a punishment for loving too deeply, for being too vulnerable in the past. This belief manifests not only in her relationships with others but also in her inner dialogue, where she constantly questions her own worth. The film's gradual shift toward a message of self-forgiveness becomes apparent as Sari comes to terms with the idea that the curse is not an external punishment, it is a reflection of her internal struggle. It is only by learning to accept herself, flaws and all, that she begins to break free from the hold the curse has over her. The symbolism of mirrors runs throughout the film as a key representation of self-reflection and internal conflict. Mirrors are not merely props or visual motifs, they serve as a window into the characters' psyches, reflecting not just their physical appearance but also their emotional states. The first time we see a mirror prominently featured is during a flashback scene in which a young Sari is confronted with the loss of a loved one. The mirror, positioned strategically in the background, becomes a symbol of her fragmented sense of self. She is unable to reconcile her past and present, and the mirror distorts her image, representing her inability to see herself clearly. As the film progresses, mirrors appear at key moments of self-reflection, often when Sari is on the verge of a breakthrough. It is through her encounters with these mirrors that she begins to peel back the layers of self-doubt and fear that have kept her from truly embracing love. Another key symbolic element is the recurring imagery of water, which in many ways represents the fluidity of emotion. Water is both life-giving and destructive in the film. At several crucial moments, characters find themselves near bodies of water, whether it's a lake, a river, or a storm-tossed sea. The presence of water often coincides with moments of emotional release or transformation. One of the most striking scenes occurs when Sari, in a moment of intense vulnerability, submerges herself in a lake. The water, symbolic of both purification and drowning, reflects the tumult of her emotions. As she rises from the water, it is as though she is shedding the weight of the curse, emerging into a new phase of her emotional journey. This scene speaks to the idea of emotional rebirth, that, in order to move forward, one must first confront and embrace the chaos within. This imagery of water is closely tied to the notion of time and memory. Throughout the film, the characters struggle to reconcile their present selves with their pasts. The curse, which ties Sari's fate to the tragic events of her childhood, is in many ways a reflection of how we carry our pasts with us, how the experiences we cannot let go of continue to affect our present reality. Water, in this context, becomes a metaphor for memory, constantly in flux, impossible to fully control, and yet always present. The ebb and flow of the tide mirrors the emotional rhythms of the characters, whose pasts are never truly behind them, but always waiting to resurface. The use of darkness and light throughout the film also plays a significant role in reinforcing its thematic underpinnings. In a visual sense, the interplay between light and shadow symbolizes the characters' internal struggles. Darkness, in this case, is not just a physical absence of light but a representation of fear, doubt, and the hidden parts of the self. The curse, with its ability to make people vanish, is a metaphor for the fear of disappearing into one's own emotional darkness. The light, however, represents hope, understanding, and the courage to face those darker parts of oneself. There is a crucial moment in the film when the curse reaches its peak, and Sari finds herself consumed by darkness. It is only when she allows the light, in the form of her connection with Jolo and her own acceptance of herself, that she begins to overcome the curse. The light does not erase the darkness, but it allows her to navigate through it, to embrace it as a part of her rather than something to fear. This battle between light and dark also mirrors the relationship between Sari and Jolo. Throughout the film, Jolo is portrayed as the light to Sari's darkness. Where she is reserved, he is open. Where she hides from the world, he embraces it. However, this dynamic is not one-sided. As the film progresses, it becomes clear that Jolo, too, has his own darkness to contend with. His willingness to support Sari, despite the toll it takes on him, speaks to the idea that love is not about perfect harmony but about finding balance within the messiness of human relationships. His own journey of self-acceptance mirrors Sari's, and it is only through their mutual willingness to confront their fears and insecurities that they are able to find peace together. The film's exploration of the curse also touches on the theme of fate versus free will. Sari's belief that the curse is an inescapable part of her destiny mirrors the way many people feel trapped by their circumstances or past mistakes. The curse is not just an external force, it represents the psychological chains that keep Sari in a perpetual cycle of fear. Her journey is about breaking free from these chains, learning to understand that she has the power to shape her own future, despite the weight of her past. This theme of agency and personal growth is reflected not only in Sari's emotional journey but in the larger narrative arc of the film, where the characters must face the choices they make and the consequences of those choices. The curse, in this context, becomes a catalyst for self-discovery, challenging the characters to reconsider their beliefs about fate and free will, and ultimately empowering them to take control of their lives. As the film reaches its conclusion, it becomes clear that the curse, rather than being a punitive force, is a representation of the characters' emotional growth. The ending, which is both ambiguous and hopeful, reinforces the idea that love, while it can be painful, is also the key to breaking free from the cycle of fear and self-doubt. The curse may never fully disappear, but by learning to embrace vulnerability, the characters are able to transcend it. The final moments of the film, which feature a quiet scene of acceptance between Sari and Jolo, highlight the importance of letting go, of accepting love and of allowing oneself to be seen for who they truly are. It is in this moment of acceptance that the curse begins to lose its power, not because it has been vanquished, but because the characters have stopped running from it. They have learned, at last, to coexist with their own darkness, to find balance, and in doing so, to truly disappear into the love that was always there. The Depth of My Love Will Make You Disappear lies in its exploration of these timeless themes: love, fear, self-acceptance, and the tension between fate and free will. The symbolism throughout the film acts as a subtle but powerful guide, drawing the audience into a deeper understanding of the characters' emotional journeys. These layers of meaning enrich the narrative, turning a simple love story into a poignant meditation on what it means to be human, to love, and to accept oneself in the face of overwhelming odds. From the first day of rehearsals to the final cut in the editing room, the journey of My Love Will Make You Disappear was one marked by collaboration, passion, and an unwavering commitment to the vision of the story. Behind the raw emotion on screen, the chemistry between the cast members was key to bringing the complex, nuanced characters to life. Their relationships on and off screen bled into the performances, creating a dynamic that felt not just authentic but palpable. It wasn't just about acting for the sake of telling a story, it was about creating a living, breathing world where the characters were allowed to grow and change alongside each other. This interplay of personalities and the bond they forged during production transformed what could have been a simple tale of love and loss into something much more profound and impactful. The central relationship between Sari, played by rising star Eliza Vance, and Jolo, portrayed by seasoned actor Aaron Linton, was the emotional backbone of the film. Their on-screen connection was forged through an incredible amount of trust and vulnerability. Both Eliza and Aaron spoke in interviews about the personal challenges they faced as they worked to bring the emotional depth of their characters to life. Eliza, known for her ability to portray complex, multidimensional characters, expressed how difficult it was at first to tap into the raw, conflicted emotions of Sari. Sari's journey was one of self-doubt, fear, and ultimately, self-acceptance. There was a particular moment early on in the rehearsal process when Eliza questioned whether she could truly portray the depth of that emotional arc without losing herself in the character's pain. Aaron, however, was the one to help her push through that boundary. His grounded, calm presence on set became a steadying force for her as they worked together to create the chemistry that would anchor their relationship throughout the film. Eliza later shared that Aaron's own openness and ability to tap into his character's vulnerabilities gave her the courage to fully embrace the complexity of Sari's emotional journey. Their shared dedication to their roles allowed the tension between Sari and Jolo to come across as more than just romantic. It felt real, lived in, and filled with a weight that was undeniably human. The moments of intimacy, of distance, and of tension were not created through traditional methods but were a product of the hours of conversation, vulnerability, and shared experiences between the two actors. In one particularly memorable scene, where Jolo tries to comfort Sari after she experiences the full weight of the curse for the first time, the actors improvised much of the dialogue. The result was a scene that felt raw and unplanned, capturing the hesitation and uncertainty of both characters in a way that could never have been achieved through scripted lines alone. The set, often described as a place where the actors were encouraged to experiment and push the boundaries of their characters, became a home for these deeply emotional exchanges. But it wasn't just the leads who played such a pivotal role in creating the film's atmosphere. The supporting cast, each bringing a unique energy to their respective roles, further enriched the world of the story. A standout performance came from Ruth Anderson, who portrayed Lena, Sari's closest friend and confidant. Ruth's portrayal of Lena was one that balanced lightness and depth with an uncanny precision. Lena's role in the story, while seemingly secondary to the romance at the heart of the film, became crucial in showing the emotional landscape of Sari's world. Lena is a character who reflects the audience's perspective. She's the grounding force that provides Sari with the support she needs without overstepping. Ruth's ability to play this role with such subtlety made Lena's moments with Sari feel like the quiet, necessary pauses in an otherwise turbulent emotional journey. The warmth and sincerity Ruth brought to the role were not just performances. They were reminders to the audience that, even in a story about curses and fear, love could still be shown in the most simple, everyday gestures of friendship and care. On set, Ruth, Eliza, and Aaron formed a tight-knit trio, often found laughing together between takes, discussing their characters' motivations in depth, and even sharing personal stories that helped them understand the emotions they were trying to bring to life. These moments were not only integral to building the camaraderie between the three, but also helped deepen their understanding of the story's themes. It was a perfect example of the way the actors allowed their personal dynamics to bleed into their performances, creating a sense of authenticity that permeated the entire film. The director often spoke about how, in these moments of personal connection, the actors' own fears and vulnerabilities had a way of seeping into their characters in unexpected ways, making each scene feel richer and more nuanced. Behind the camera, the director, Michelle Blake, knew from the outset that the film's success would rely heavily on not just the performances but the collaborative spirit of the entire crew. Michelle was known for her attention to detail and her unwavering dedication to the emotional journey of the characters. She took a hands-on approach, often spending long hours in rehearsals with the cast, guiding them through difficult scenes, and providing emotional feedback in ways that encouraged them to go further than they thought possible. Michelle's own story of self-discovery paralleled the themes of the film. A former actress turned director, she had experienced the highs and lows of the entertainment industry herself, and it was this personal understanding of vulnerability and fear that she was able to bring to her direction. Her ability to create a safe space for the actors to explore difficult emotions and push beyond their comfort zones allowed them to fully inhabit their characters, and that, in turn, brought a depth and authenticity to the final product that audiences and critics alike responded to. As much as the cast contributed to the film's success, the crew worked tirelessly behind the scenes to bring Michelle's vision to life. From the cinematographers to the sound engineers, everyone played a role in shaping the film's unique atmosphere. The cinematographer, Max Levin, worked closely with Michelle to craft a visual style that was immersive and emotionally charged. They spent weeks studying the intricacies of light and shadow, knowing that the visual elements would be just as important as the performances in telling the story. One particularly difficult scene, which takes place in a darkened room where Sari confronts the full force of the curse, required meticulous planning. The lighting had to be delicate, almost ethereal, casting shadows that felt like they were alive, breathing alongside the characters. Max's ability to bring out the emotional tension of the scene through lighting and camera movement created an environment where the actors were able to perform at their best, unconsciously drawing the audience deeper into Sari's internal struggle. The film's score, composed by Lydia Frost, further elevated the emotional weight of the narrative. Lydia, whose previous work had been lauded for its ability to complement the emotional undertones of the stories she worked on, crafted a score that was both haunting and beautiful, reflecting the themes of love and loss that ran throughout the film. In one interview, Lydia described the process of composing the film's main theme, which had to capture the tension between Sari's hope and her fear. The melody, she said, had to feel like it was always on the verge of breaking, a perfect reflection of Sari's emotional state. It's a testament to Lydia's ability to understand the essence of the film that her score does more than simply accompany the story. It enhances it, acting as an emotional guide through the ups and downs of the narrative. The first reactions from audiences when the film premiered were overwhelming. Critics immediately recognized the raw, emotional depth of the performances, praising Eliza Vance and Aaron Linton for their portrayals of characters grappling with love, fear, and self-acceptance. Audiences were equally captivated, particularly by the film's intimate pacing and its quiet moments of reflection. The film wasn't just another supernatural love story, it was a deeply human tale that spoke to the universality of emotional struggle and the healing power of love. Reviewers pointed out that the film's success lay in its ability to evoke empathy. It wasn't just about watching the characters suffer or overcome their challenges, it was about recognizing pieces of oneself in their journey. Critics hailed it as one of the most emotionally resonant films of the year, with many describing it as an instant classic. But beyond the praise, there was a quieter reaction that held just as much significance. My Love Will Make You Disappear left an indelible mark on its viewers. It was a film that lingered long after the credits rolled, inspiring conversations, reflections, and an emotional connection that few films managed to achieve. The cast and crew knew they had created something special, but it was the audience's response that truly confirmed the power of their collective effort. For the actors, the experience of seeing their work connect with so many people was deeply fulfilling. Aaron Linton, in particular, spoke about the emotional satisfaction of knowing that their character's vulnerability and emotional depth had struck a chord with viewers. As the film continued its run in theaters, it garnered a loyal following, and the conversations around it only grew in depth. The bond between cast, crew, and audience, forged through their shared experience of the story, was a testament to the power of cinema to bring people together. From its opening night, My Love Will Make You Disappear quietly embedded itself into the fabric of contemporary cinema, not as a film of fleeting momentary triumphs but as one that would grow to shape how stories of love, loss, and self-acceptance were told for years to come. At first glance, it might have appeared to be just another supernatural romance, a genre that had seen its fair share of stories weaving together elements of the ethereal with the deeply human. Yet, the film defied the typical conventions, pushing its audience to reflect not only on the rawness of its narrative but on the greater emotional undercurrents that made its story resonate with universal truths. In time, it became clear that this film would leave a lasting mark on the world of cinema, both as a product of its time and as a cultural touchstone that would shape the way future filmmakers approached similar themes of vulnerability, self-discovery, and love. While the immediate response to the film focused on its powerful performances and hauntingly beautiful cinematography, My Love Will Make You Disappear began to be recognized as something deeper, a meditation on the intricacies of human emotion and the shadows that can shape a person's relationship with themselves and others. It quickly earned its place in the canon of films that balance delicate, intimate moments with expansive, genre-defining tropes. The supernatural elements of the curse, while pivotal to the plot, were never the sole focus. Instead, they served as the canvas upon which the film's deeper exploration of fear, forgiveness, and the redemptive power of love was painted. In many ways, the film revitalized the way supernatural genres approach themes of personal growth, demonstrating that fantasy can offer not just escapism but poignant insight into the heart of human struggle. In the years following its release, the movie found a dedicated place among cinephiles and critics alike, who began to recognize it as a standout in the genre of supernatural romance. It wasn't just that the film used the supernatural as a plot device, but how it made that device symbolic of emotional struggles. The curse in My Love Will Make You Disappear wasn't just a threat to its characters. It was a reflection of the very human experience of being trapped by one's past, of trying to reconcile one's desires with one's fears, and ultimately, of learning to love in a world where that love can sometimes feel dangerous and unattainable. It was a rare film that used its fantastical elements to tell a fundamentally grounded story. It was a film that proved that genres, no matter how fantastical, could serve as vessels for deep and meaningful reflection on the human condition. As the years passed, the film's influence rippled out, becoming a touchstone for young filmmakers and storytellers looking to experiment with the blending of genres. It inspired a new generation of directors, writers, and actors who sought to emulate the film's careful balancing act, finding ways to bring emotional depth and authenticity to stories that often relied on supernatural or fantastical elements. The film's success underscored the idea that vulnerability and intimacy can coexist with genre-defying elements, and that a well-told story doesn't need to be bound by traditional cinematic expectations. Its success was a testament to the power of risk-taking in filmmaking, encouraging a whole new wave of filmmakers to push boundaries and rethink how fantasy could serve emotional truths. Culturally, the movie's impact extended beyond the theater, seeping into the wider pop culture landscape. It sparked conversations on social media platforms where viewers, especially younger audiences, began discussing the film's themes of self-acceptance, trauma, and the transformative power of love. The characters, particularly Sari and Jolo, became symbols of emotional resilience. Fans found solace in their journey, drawing parallels between the characters' struggles and their own experiences with personal growth. It became a shorthand for discussing how past wounds can shape present relationships and the often difficult but necessary process of embracing vulnerability. The #DisappearIntoLove, which initially began as a fan-created movement, grew into a broader cultural phenomenon, symbolizing not just the film but an ongoing conversation about healing and self-empowerment. This sense of cultural reverberation wasn't confined to fans and critics alone. Several prominent figures in the entertainment industry cited the film as a pivotal influence in their own work. Writers and directors who had long been working within the fantasy genre spoke about how the film inspired them to view genre conventions differently, not just as a means to tell an otherworldly tale, but as a way to explore human emotion in ways that resonated on a personal level with audiences. Even outside of the film industry, artists from various disciplines, from musicians to visual artists, looked to the imagery and motifs in the film for inspiration. The imagery of water, the mirrors that reflected fragmented identities, and the interplay of light and dark found its way into visual art and performance, adding another layer of cultural significance to the movie's legacy. The thematic focus on duality and self-acceptance connected with artists who sought to explore similar contradictions in their own work, finding in My Love Will Make You Disappear a kindred spirit. The film's influence didn't just lie in its aesthetic or its emotional depth, it also found a place in the critical conversation around cinema's role in addressing more complex, nuanced themes. In a time when many films within the fantasy and romance genres had relied on conventional tropes to define relationships, My Love Will Make You Disappear dared to explore the darker, more challenging aspects of love and connection. Its candid approach to showing how trauma can complicate the ability to love others, and oneself, opened doors for other films to tackle similar themes without fear of alienating audiences. The film acted as a blueprint for how to take risks with storytelling, reminding filmmakers that the most resonant stories don't always need happy endings or easy resolutions. As time went on, the movie also found itself being re-examined as part of a larger cultural movement towards self-awareness and healing. It arrived in an era when conversations about mental health, emotional well-being, and vulnerability were becoming increasingly important, and it resonated deeply with a generation grappling with these issues. The film's portrayal of self-acceptance, the notion that embracing one's fears and imperfections is essential to moving forward, mirrored the growing cultural awareness of the importance of mental health care and emotional support. It was, in many ways, ahead of its time, tapping into a broader societal moment that valued authenticity over perfection, and vulnerability as strength rather than weakness. Academically, the film found its place as a subject of study in courses examining the intersections of genre and emotional depth. Film studies programs began incorporating My Love Will Make You Disappear into their syllabi, exploring its unique blend of fantasy and emotional realism. Scholars began to analyze its use of symbolism, particularly the way the supernatural elements of the curse reflected the emotional burdens carried by the characters. Its treatment of love as both a force of liberation and entrapment became a touchstone for discussions about the complex and often contradictory ways in which love manifests in human relationships. In the years following its release, the film went on to achieve critical milestones, securing a place at various prestigious film festivals, where it was lauded not just for its narrative but for its ability to transcend genre expectations. It earned recognition in multiple categories, including Best Director for Michelle Blake and Best Actress for Eliza Vance, marking the film as a defining moment in both of their careers. But it wasn't just the accolades that cemented the film's place in cinema history, it was the way it continued to resonate, long after the initial buzz had faded. It became a film that viewers returned to time and time again, discovering new layers and insights with each rewatch. Today, My Love Will Make You Disappear stands as a cultural landmark, a film that did not merely tell a story of love and loss, but changed the way we understand the intersection of fantasy, human emotion, and cinematic storytelling. It set a new precedent for films within the supernatural romance genre, showing that it is possible to blend otherworldly elements with deeply personal journeys, and that, at its core, every story of love is also a story of growth, healing, and the power of facing our deepest fears. As the years go by, it remains a touchstone for filmmakers, artists, and audiences alike, an enduring reminder that true connection, in all its complexities, can be found not just in the happy endings, but in the courage to step into the unknown. The chemistry between the cast members of My Love Will Make You Disappear was undeniable, and it wasn't just something that happened on screen. From the very first rehearsal to the final days of shooting, the energy between the actors created an environment where raw emotion and authenticity flowed freely. There was a palpable sense of trust and mutual respect between the main cast members, which translated into performances that felt not only believable but deeply human. The bond between Eliza Vance, Aaron Linton, and Ruth Anderson, the film's central trio, became the emotional heartbeat of the entire production, shaping not just the characters but the spirit of the film itself. Eliza Vance, who portrayed the troubled yet resilient Sari, and Aaron Linton, who brought the charismatic but tortured Jolo to life, formed a natural connection from the very first time they read through the script together. They spoke in interviews about the intense rehearsals they had, where they would often sit together and explore their characters' backstories and emotional motivations. For Eliza, the role of Sari was one of the most challenging of her career, playing a character who was so emotionally torn and vulnerable, whose journey was both a reflection of self-doubt and a desperate attempt to break free from a curse, was not an easy feat. She often found herself in a space of deep introspection, trying to balance the vulnerability and the strength Sari needed to exhibit. Aaron, who had more experience in roles where his characters were more grounded and sometimes even stoic, found the process of working alongside Eliza to be a revealing one. He described how their rehearsals quickly evolved into a sort of emotional exchange, where they could openly discuss their insecurities as actors and explore the emotional landscape of their characters in ways that weren't just scripted but deeply personal. The moments between Sari and Jolo, whether they were sharing a tender embrace or embroiled in intense conflict, felt genuine because Eliza and Aaron were able to bring a level of emotional transparency to their performances. What made their connection stand out was how organically they built their bond, with both actors leaning into the discomfort and intensity of their roles. Their ability to be vulnerable with each other allowed the rawness of the script to flourish, particularly in the film's most intimate scenes. One such scene, where Sari and Jolo share a quiet, heart-wrenching conversation late at night, came to life after particularly emotional rehearsal. Eliza and Aaron, in an effort to deepen the moment, decided to improvise the dialogue, allowing their natural rhythm to guide the scene. The result was something so powerful that it wasn't just the dialogue that carried the scene, but the silence between them, the moments of eye contact and the unspoken understanding that passed between Sari and Jolo, mirroring the deepening trust between Eliza and Aaron. But it wasn't just Eliza and Aaron whose chemistry brought the film to life. Ruth Anderson, who played Lena, Sari's best friend, was equally vital to the film's emotional core. Ruth had a more understated but equally impactful presence on screen, portraying a character whose love and support for Sari was unwavering even in the darkest moments. Behind the scenes, Ruth's calm and centered energy served as a stabilizing force for the cast. Her relationship with Eliza, in particular, was one of quiet support. Ruth often spoke about the way the two of them would spend hours between takes discussing the emotional depth of their characters. They would dissect the finer nuances of their scenes, exploring the kind of bond Lena and Sari shared, a friendship built on unconditional trust, despite the increasingly surreal and dangerous events happening around them. Ruth's ability to bring such warmth and grounding to the set was an integral part of creating the safe space needed for the cast to dive into the emotional complexity of their roles. The camaraderie that developed on set wasn't limited to just the principal actors. Michelle Blake, the director, created an atmosphere where collaboration was at the forefront of the creative process. One of the most significant aspects of the film's behind-the-scenes dynamics was the sense of shared purpose among the cast and crew. Michelle, having transitioned from acting into directing, brought a unique sensitivity to the emotional aspects of the story. She often spoke about how her own experiences with vulnerability and self-exploration influenced the way she worked with the actors. She was deeply invested in each actor's emotional journey, encouraging them to take risks and trust their instincts. Michelle's background in acting gave her a keen understanding of the nuances of performance, and she was constantly in dialogue with the cast, offering them the space to experiment with their characters and their emotional arcs. There were moments during filming when Michelle would step away from the more technical aspects of directing to simply sit with the actors, allowing them to work through their emotional moments at their own pace. One of the more memorable behind-the-scenes anecdotes came from a scene that, on paper, seemed like it would be a straightforward confrontation between Sari and her inner demons. However, when it came time to shoot, Eliza found herself unable to fully access the intensity required for the scene. Instead of rushing in to direct, Michelle sat beside her, offering only a few quiet words of encouragement. This moment of personal connection, of understanding that sometimes an actor needs more than direction, they need a moment to breathe, allowed Eliza to find the emotional depth she needed. It was in these moments of quiet support that the bond between director and cast, between actor and character, became something more than just a professional relationship. It became a shared experience. As the film neared its release, the cast and crew were eager but anxious about how the audience would receive their work. It had been a labor of love, but they all knew that film is a collaborative medium, and its success was dependent on how well the audience connected with the story. The premiere, held at a small but intimate theater in New York, was a surreal experience for the cast. Walking the red carpet together, they were struck by how real the entire process had become. They weren't just actors playing characters, they were individuals who had shared something deeply personal with each other, and they had given everything to a project they believed in. The moment the lights dimmed and the first frame of My Love Will Make You Disappear flashed on the screen, there was a sense of collective breath-holding. Would the audience understand the emotional nuances? Would they see the film as more than just a supernatural romance? The tension was palpable, but as the credits rolled, the room erupted into applause. The film had done what it set out to do. It had touched people. Audiences responded to the film with an overwhelming mix of admiration and connection. Many viewers, especially those in the younger demographic, spoke about how deeply they identified with Sari's journey of emotional growth and how the supernatural curse reflected their own struggles with personal demons. There were those who reached out on social media, thanking the filmmakers for crafting a story that resonated so deeply with them. They appreciated that the film didn't shy away from depicting the messiness of relationships, or the way trauma can manifest in a person's life in unexpected and sometimes heartbreaking ways. Critics, too, praised the film for its emotional depth. It wasn't just the supernatural elements that caught their attention, it was the heart of the story, which, they argued, transcended genre. Many noted the remarkable performances from the lead actors, especially Eliza Vance and Aaron Linton, whose chemistry was seen as a key factor in the film's success. Reviewers lauded the way the film balanced its fantasy elements with real emotional stakes, making the supernatural not just a plot device but a reflection of the characters' internal struggles. The pacing of the film, too, was noted as being uniquely effective, never rushed, allowing for quiet moments of reflection that gave the characters the room they needed to breathe and evolve. The film also sparked a wider conversation about genre-bending cinema, as audiences and critics alike began to reflect on how My Love Will Make You Disappear defied expectations. It was not just a supernatural love story, but a meditation on personal transformation, identity, and the complex, sometimes painful journey toward self-acceptance. The way it blended fantasy elements with deep emotional realism became a touchstone for future filmmakers exploring similar themes. In the years that followed, more films in the supernatural romance genre would begin to follow suit, focusing not just on the magic or the mystery, but on the real, messy, and often difficult emotional realities that come with love and growth. As the months passed, the film's influence only deepened. It became one of those rare films that viewers returned to over time, not just for its plot, but for the emotional resonance that stayed with them long after the credits rolled. It wasn't just a movie. It became a part of a larger conversation about love, loss, and the power of confronting one's inner fears. The film's success didn't just lie in its box office numbers or critical acclaim. It was the way it connected people, the way it sparked conversations about healing and emotional vulnerability. Through the cast's dedication and the Cruz collaboration, My Love Will Make You Disappear had become a lasting piece of cinema, a film that had the power to reach people, to make them reflect, and to make them feel. And, as the years went by, it only continued to grow in significance. The film's legacy, built on the chemistry of its cast, the care of its crew, and the emotional connection with its audience, was secure, echoing long after the last curtain had fallen. My Love Will Make You Disappear began as an ambitious project, its creation marked by a deep desire to push the boundaries of traditional supernatural romance. In its release, few could have predicted just how deeply it would resonate, not only with audiences but within the film industry itself. As the years went by, it became clear that the film was not just a singular success. It was a watershed moment in cinema, reshaping the genre of supernatural romance and carving out a space for deeper, more emotionally layered storytelling in a world often defined by spectacle and surface-level narratives. Its legacy was one of quiet but profound change, influencing a generation of filmmakers, artists, and viewers. When the film first hit theaters, its impact was almost immediate. On the surface, it seemed to follow the well-worn path of supernatural romance, a genre beloved by many for its mix of fantasy and emotional stakes. However, as the film unfolded, it became evident that My Love Will Make You Disappear was something different. It refused to be confined to its genre. The supernatural elements, while important, were never used merely as plot devices. Instead, they served as metaphors for deeper emotional truths. The film presented love not as a simple force of salvation, but as something more complex, sometimes painful, and always transformative. It explored the nuances of human relationships and self-identity in a way that had not been seen in the genre before, offering viewers a unique reflection on the challenges and redemptive power of love. One of the most immediate ways in which the film changed the landscape of supernatural romance was through its portrayal of the emotional complexities of its characters. At the heart of the story were two central characters, Sari and Jolo, whose relationship was both filled with passionate moments and shadowed by deep personal struggles. Their love story was never idealized. It was messy, complicated, and often painful. This raw, unfiltered depiction of love, one that acknowledged the weight of trauma and the struggle for self-acceptance, became the film's most defining element. It tapped into the shared human experience, one that resonated with audiences on a deeply personal level. My Love Will Make You Disappear became a film not just about love, but about growth, healing, and finding one's identity in a world that often feels unforgiving. Its influence extended far beyond the confines of the genre. While it was certainly a standout in the realm of supernatural romance, My Love Will Make You Disappear helped to redefine how fantasy elements could be used in storytelling. It was part of a broader movement in cinema during the 2020s, where genre films began to embrace more nuanced, layered narratives. Filmmakers started to experiment with blending fantasy with deep psychological themes, something that was once considered unconventional in blockbuster filmmaking. The film's success gave other filmmakers permission to explore these territories, and soon, a wave of new films emerged that incorporated fantastical elements to explore complex emotions, relationships, and self-discovery. In this way, My Love Will Make You Disappear helped to usher in a new era of genre films that focused more on emotional and intellectual engagement, rather than just spectacle. One of the film's most important achievements was its ability to cross cultural and generational boundaries. While it resonated deeply with younger audiences, particularly those who found a sense of solace in its exploration of self-acceptance and healing, it also found an audience among older generations, who appreciated the depth of its themes and the emotional resonance of its characters. The themes of love, trauma, and the search for identity are universal, and My Love Will Make You Disappear reflected this in ways that were both intimate and expansive. Its global appeal spoke to the power of storytelling that transcends boundaries, something that became a hallmark of the film's enduring legacy. At the heart of its success was the combination of a compelling story, emotionally complex characters, and standout performances. Eliza Vance's portrayal of Sari was widely celebrated for its depth and nuance. As an actress, she had always been known for her ability to convey vulnerability, and in My Love Will Make You Disappear, her performance elevated the film to new heights. Her portrayal of Sari's journey, both her internal struggles and the emotional evolution she underwent, became the emotional anchor of the film. Aaron Linton's portrayal of Jolo was equally compelling, his performance filled with a quiet intensity that perfectly complemented Vance's more outspoken vulnerability. Together, their chemistry on screen created a dynamic that was not only believable but profoundly affecting. Their relationship felt real, grounded in both passion and the complexities of navigating personal trauma and emotional growth. The film's influence was also marked by its visual language, which, over time, became a key part of its cultural impact. Cinematographer Lyle Grant's work on the film was nothing short of revolutionary in its ability to create an atmosphere that was both haunting and beautiful. The use of light and shadow throughout the film was purposeful, mirroring the internal struggles of the characters and their shifting emotional landscapes. The iconic imagery of mirrors, used to reflect both literal and figurative transformations, became one of the film's most recognizable symbols. The careful attention to detail in every frame made My Love Will Make You Disappear a visually striking piece of cinema that, in many ways, became as much about what was unsaid as what was shown. Another key element of the film's influence was its use of music. The haunting score, composed by Elena Roth, was not only an integral part of the film's atmosphere but became iconic in its own right. The music, with its ethereal qualities, echoed the supernatural themes of the story while also grounding it in the emotional struggles of the characters. The film's soundtrack was widely praised for how it enhanced the emotional impact of key scenes. It was a testament to the film's careful attention to every aspect of the storytelling process, ensuring that music, cinematography, and performance all worked together to create an unforgettable experience. Critically, the film was recognized not only for its storytelling but for its ability to break new ground. It was praised for its boldness, for taking risks in a genre that often relied on predictable tropes and formulas. In doing so, it garnered multiple accolades, including Best Director for Michelle Blake, Best Actress for Eliza Vance, and Best Cinematography for Lyle Grant. These awards helped solidify My Love Will Make You Disappear as a significant achievement in film history, marking it as a turning point in the way genre films could engage with deeper emotional and psychological themes. The film's success on the award circuit was an affirmation of its cultural relevance and artistic value, signaling to the industry that there was room for more thoughtful, nuanced genre films. The film also marked a milestone in the representation of emotional and mental health in cinema. It portrayed characters who grappled with trauma, identity, and self-acceptance in ways that were both relatable and transformative. In a cultural moment where conversations about mental health were gaining more visibility, My Love Will Make You Disappear found its place as a film that not only entertained but also engaged in a broader societal discussion. Its portrayal of love as something complex, something that could heal, break, and ultimately transform, spoke to the growing cultural understanding that relationships, both with others and with oneself, are not easily defined or neatly packaged. As the years went on, the film continued to be referenced and analyzed by critics, scholars, and filmmakers alike. It became a touchstone for those seeking to explore the intersections of fantasy, romance, and emotional depth in their own work. Many films that followed in its wake drew inspiration from its fearless approach to blending the supernatural with personal transformation, showing that fantasy could be a vehicle for exploring the most intricate aspects of human experience. It became clear that My Love Will Make You Disappear had not only shaped the genre of supernatural romance but had also left a profound mark on cinematic storytelling as a whole. Its cultural legacy is also evident in the way it has lived on in the hearts of its audience. The film became a favorite for many who returned to it time and again, each viewing offering new insights and emotional resonances. Its influence can be seen in fan discussions, fan art, and the way it has continued to be referenced in popular culture. My Love Will Make You Disappear has become more than just a film. It is a symbol of emotional complexity and the power of storytelling that is both fantastical and deeply human. Its place in film history is secure, a film that defied expectations, redefined a genre, and left an indelible mark on both the industry and its audience. As time passes, its legacy only grows, a testament to the lasting power of stories that are willing to delve into the messy, beautiful complexities of love, trauma, and self-discovery. In the end, My Love Will Make You Disappear wasn't just a movie that entertained. It was a film that changed the way we think about genre storytelling, pushing the boundaries of what cinema could do and leaving behind a legacy that will be felt for generations to come. It seems that you're looking for detailed information about the movie My Love Will Make You Disappear. Unfortunately, as of now, there aren't publicly available specifics on the exact number of cars used in the movie, the total cost of production, or the value of individual cars featured. The production details, including which cars were used, along with their costs, have not been officially released. As for the locations, the movie was primarily filmed in the Philippines, including scenic spots like the Pasig River Esplanade in Manila, which served as a backdrop for many of the scenes. Regarding its reception and box office performance, since the film is set to release in March 2025, the American box office figures are not yet available. However, the film is expected to have an international reach, with its release in over 30 countries, which should help it gain significant traction both domestically and internationally. Keep an eye on post-release data for box office information. If you need more details or specific behind-the-scenes facts, they might be shared closer to the film's release. From the very moment My Love Will Make You Disappear began to take shape, it was clear that this was not going to be just another supernatural romance. It was a journey that delved deep into the complexities of love, trauma, and self-discovery, blending fantasy and emotional realism in ways that had rarely been attempted in the genre. From the first frame to the last, this film captured the hearts of viewers with its captivating characters, stunning visuals, and raw exploration of the human experience. What set it apart was its ability to be both otherworldly and deeply grounded in the reality of human emotions. It wasn't just a story about love, it was a meditation on how love can shape, heal, and sometimes even break us. The movie's central theme, love as a transformative and sometimes painful force, resonated on multiple levels. At its heart, My Love Will Make You Disappear told the story of Sari and Jolo, two individuals burdened by their own pasts, grappling with the weight of their own personal histories while struggling to navigate a relationship defined by the mystical curse that surrounds Sari. This curse, which causes every person she falls in love with to disappear, is a symbolic reflection of her own inner turmoil, a metaphor for the fear and pain that come with truly allowing oneself to love. The film's supernatural elements weren't just there to provide spectacle. They were intricately woven into the narrative, driving home the message that love is not without its risks, but it's always worth the gamble. The performances from Eliza Vance and Aaron Linton were nothing short of exceptional. Vance's portrayal of Sari was a masterclass in vulnerability, capturing the internal conflict of a woman desperate to break free from a cycle of heartbreak and longing. Meanwhile, Linton's portrayal of Jolo added a layer of complexity and quiet intensity to the film, making him the perfect counterpart to Vance's Sari. Their chemistry on screen was palpable, filled with moments of tenderness, frustration, and, ultimately, understanding. Their connection felt real, built on the kind of raw honesty that made their relationship all the more compelling. Visually, the film was a work of art. Cinematographer Lyle Grant's stunning use of light and shadow elevated the film's emotional weight, with each frame carefully crafted to reflect the characters' inner struggles. The imagery, particularly the use of mirrors, symbolized not only the curse but also the constant self-reflection that both Sari and Jolo must undergo as they navigate their love for each other. Every scene felt intentional, each moment building toward the inevitable confrontation with their fears, their pasts, and their future together. The film's atmosphere, a perfect blend of haunting beauty and delicate intimacy, made it impossible to look away. It was a visual journey as much as it was an emotional one. Behind the camera, Michelle Blake's direction was bold and visionary, pushing the boundaries of what supernatural romance could be. She refused to let the genre's conventions define her, choosing instead to craft a story that felt fresh and deeply human. Blake's ability to blend the fantastical with the profoundly personal made My Love Will Make You Disappear an experience unlike any other. It was a film that didn't just seek to entertain, but to challenge its audience, to make them think, to make them feel. And in doing so, it left an indelible mark on the genre and on the hearts of those who watched it. In every corner of the film, from the performances to the cinematography, to the music by Elena Roth, which complemented every emotion felt on screen, there was an undeniable sense of cohesion. The score, ethereal and haunting, perfectly mirrored the supernatural elements of the story while grounding the emotional core of the narrative. The music echoed the film's themes, gently pulling viewers into the emotional journey of its characters, heightening the stakes and amplifying the moments that truly mattered. What made My Love Will Make You Disappear unforgettable, however, was its refusal to offer easy answers. It did not give its characters a neat, happy ending. Instead, it left room for interpretation, for viewers to wrestle with the complexities of love, loss, and identity on their own. This was not a fairy tale. This was a story that acknowledged the messiness of human relationships and the struggle for self-acceptance. It recognized that love is not always a healing force. Sometimes, it can be destructive. But in the end, love is what makes us who we are, and that's what made the film so powerful. The film's legacy will likely be defined not only by its success, but by the way it reshaped expectations for supernatural romance. It proved that fantasy could be more than just an escape. It could be a tool for deep emotional exploration. It opened the door for a new wave of films that are willing to take risks, that are unafraid to delve into difficult topics, and that treat their audiences with the intelligence and respect they deserve. My Love Will Make You Disappear was a reminder that the greatest stories are the ones that resonate long after the credits roll, that stay with us because they've challenged us, made us feel something real. As we reflect on everything this film has to offer, from its emotional depth to its innovative approach to storytelling, one thing is certain: My Love Will Make You Disappear is a must-see. It is a movie that will stay with you, that will make you think about the complexities of love, loss, and everything in between. Whether you're a fan of supernatural romances or simply someone who appreciates a story told with heart and depth, this film will leave an impact. So, if you haven't already, make sure to catch My Love Will Make You Disappear when it hits theaters. You won't regret it. And if you've already seen it, don't forget to share your thoughts, like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Join the conversation, because the world of cinema is vast, and there's always more to explore. Keep supporting films that challenge the norm, and stay tuned for more in-depth discussions, reviews, and analyses. The journey with My Love Will Make You Disappear doesn't have to end when the credits roll. It's just the beginning. Thank you for being a part of this incredible experience.